I'm somebody who can sit and read a book about science for hours on end, and I don't mind being labeled as somebody who finds that interesting.
I will not be outworked. You might have more talent than me, you might be smarter than me, you might be sexier than me, you might be all of those things. You got it on me in 9 categories. But if we get on the treadmill together, there's 2 things. You're getting off first, or I'm gonna die. Concept of improving lives runs through the center of everything I do. And then I realized that the way to improve lives is to continually improve yourself, right? So with that, every morning when I get out of the bed, I haven't fixed everything in the world yet, so there's always something to do.
We can also see a decline in violence. It's amazing now because we hear about all the violent things around the world, but every century the world has had a lot less war, a lot less violent deaths, and we've come to value the work that's being done, think together about humanity's common future.
And in this film, I read an interesting quote. Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, he said that good people have to get out of the bed every day and try to empty the ocean with a ladle. And I thought that was profound, and I paused for a second and I said, all right, what the hell is a ladle?
It's not an accident that the axiomatic Western individual is someone who was unfairly nailed to a cross and tortured. It's like, I thought about that for a long time too. It's like, well, you don't get together in a damn mob, because all that does is allow you to be as horrible as you could possibly imagine and suffer from none of the consequences. That's a bad idea.
You're not going to outwork me. It's such a simple, basic concept. It's the guy who is willing to hustle the most is going to be the guy that just gets that loose ball. He got 2. Going to be out of bounds, but he saved it back in.
I have a job I hate. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm not dying from it. It's like not as bad as it can be. So you factored in the risks already. They get invisible. You think, well, I can't jump out of this job because what about all the risk? It's like, yeah, no kidding. You got to then you have to go get interviewed, and maybe you're not any good at that. You have to come up with a story, well, you're a good employee and maybe you're not yet. So you have to figure out how to do that.
So how about we don't do that? Well, there's a deep idea in the West. Pick up your damn suffering and bear it and try to be a good person so you don't make it worse. Well, that's a truth. I read a lot about the terrible things that people have done to each other. You just cannot even imagine it. So awful. So you don't want to be someone like that.
When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself if today were the last day of my life. And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something.
One of the keys to Apple is Apple's an incredibly collaborative company. We are organized like a startup. One person's in charge of iPhone OS software. One person's in charge of Mac hardware. One person's in charge of iPhone hardware engineering. Another person's in charge of worldwide marketing. We're the biggest startup on the planet.
What about all these risks if I go look for a new job? It's like, yeah, absolutely, man. Those are risks, and they're harsh, and no wonder you're avoiding them. What about the risks for you to stay with this job you absolutely hate? Well, let's think that through. Okay, so I have this dead-end job. I hate it. I'm getting bitter. Where am I going to be in 5 years? I know where, because I've watched this with people.
Computers, when I was young, were super expensive, and my friend Paul Allen and I actually snuck into places at the University of Washington where they had computers that weren't being used at night. So we were fascinated by what the computer could do, but very few people getting exposure. We had to go out of our way, and we were lucky that we did it all.
Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. These things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
The idea of moving the computer onto a chip that Intel would make, and that would make the computer literally millions of times cheaper than the ones we were using, so both more powerful and available to people on a personal level. Then the idea of, okay, it would be very different. The software you needed, the way the industry would work, be there when that was happening.
And we all meet for 3 hours once a week, and we talk about everything we're doing. And there's tremendous teamwork at the top of the company, which filters down to tremendous teamwork throughout the company. And teamwork is dependent on trusting the other folks to come through with their part without watching them all the time, but trusting that they're going to come through with their parts.
But I think we can already see the shape things in some ways. The human population, which was growing at a very rapid rate, is now growing at a slower rate because as we become successful, families have chosen to have less children. And so we can see a peak population that makes it possible to think about living within the resource constraints that we have.
The separation of talent and skill is one of the greatest misunderstood concepts for people who are trying to excel, who have dreams that want to do things. Talent you have naturally. Skill is only developed by hours and hours and hours of beating on your craft.